No mai haere mai, and welcome to Exchange Cafe, where together we have the solutions. I've got an amazing group with me today. We're going to go around the room and do introductions. I'm Shannon Dowsing. This is Renee Aotearoa.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Do you want to introduce yourself for us?
Sure. Ko Renee Aotearoa, tōku ingoa, no Ngāti Porou. I wear a few hats in the environmental space. One of the key ones is with East Coast Exchange, establishing a regional data market to enable us to bring resource directly into the front line of regeneration type activities. Also chair Te Wiri Charitable Trust, which is all about growing our own local research capacity into climate, weather extremes, and how those impact our community as well. And recently I've had a lot of opportunity to sit on some regional kind of strategic groups. So the Transition Advisory Group, looking at how our region needs to transition its land use off the back of the Outrage to Optimism report, aka the Milu. I guess the most important of all is that I Whakapapatū a place in Rangitukia on our land block there. We are piloting a kind of global pilot for regeneration work in using nature markets to resource that.
Amazing. Well, yeah, and I think last time we would have seen you on Exchange Cafe was Citizens Assembly when you were delivering that document, and very passionate group of people, and an amazing project to be involved in. It must have been really fun, writing that document. Yeah, well,
I was really an observer of the process. So the Citizens Assembly is made up of a group of diverse peoples across Tairāwhiti who were brought together, selected to sit on a number of panels together and discuss our land use transition from all of their different perspectives. And so the output of that as the Citizens Assembly is that you've got citizens of Tairāwhiti from all walks of life kind of coming together to produce a document that asks for calls to action for the future of our land use, managing through that process to actually find places of agreement amongst those diverse opinions. It was super interesting to kind of witness. It was a kind of an honour to be an observer in that space and just see how much passion our citizens have for land use and the opportunities we have in that space, and the ask for things to be locally led and the ask for things to be intergenerational, to see the continued commitment. So that was a project that the resourcing of which has kind of ended now, but actually the citizens are still staying committed to the cause and really wanting to kind of follow up on those calls to action. I recommend anyone out there to have a look at what came through from the Citizens Assembly. We've presented to Council. Council's going to give a response. We've presented to our MPs. They're going to give a response, and some of our government departments as well. Well,
thank you for your amazing mahi. You were involved, I know you were. Around the room we'll go. We have Sam Rowland with us again from Tairāwhiti Environment Centre. Kia ora.
Kia ora, nice to be back, especially on a topic like this, which I am super passionate about.
Absolutely, and with you, you've brought in Simon Miller, ED of Pure Advantage, and the producer of Think Like a Forest. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and I've come in from Wanaka, so I'm a highly enthusiastic visitor to the region. So thanks for having me.
Wants to move here.
Another beautiful day in paradise is the way I see it.
Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. You have come to paradise today, fortunately. Look, today we're going to focus on land use. Obviously, Tairāwhiti has some of the most highly erodible soil in the country. We've seen some of the worst outcomes from weather events recently. From the planting practices in region haven't been particularly kind to us. In fact, I had a little giggle to myself a few days ago when there was almost a full page article on the fact that there was like a hectare of willow poles being grown, and it was like a big story. And I was like, is this the same story that they ran like late 80s? Who's going to start this change? And I'm going to throw that over to you, Sam. You have been involved around this discussion for a little while, and I'd like to know what your thoughts are around the process of beginning this change.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. So I suppose, like Renee, I am part of the Transition Advisory Group. So this is a group that was set up by Gisborne District Council after the Milu, and it involves forestry sector, farming sector, tile representatives, iwi representatives, and catchment groups, as well as Gisborne District Council experts and Ministry of Primary Industry experts. And this group has really been around how we can transition a large chunk of our land. So they've mapped it, 60 to 100,000 hectares of highly erodible land that's in close proximity to waterways. And we've been working now since, I think I've been part of it since about November, since I came into role at Tairāwhiti Environment Centre. And we have been looking at exactly that. So like, how do we do this? I would say that we have already started as a region. There's so many groups out there, so many landowners out there that are already looking at how they can plant a bunch of these highly erodible slopes and put them into permanent vegetation cover. So we're obviously all for natives in this sense. It is not defined whether that's natives or exotics. So, it is happening. We're working super collaboratively on this absolute wicked problem in region, and working across sectors that probably wouldn't work together that much in the past. And for me personally, I've just got so much out of this, because we sit in a room and we are discussing the future of our region, the future of our children and our grandchildren, our economy, not just an environmental problem. It's all interlinked for us. We've seen that in the cyclone. We saw the impacts on our business. We've seen the impacts on our landowners. We know people are moving away from the region because of these weather events. So just being in this room and being able to talk to these different sectors and really drill down into how we can do this, it's just been amazing. And we're getting results, We've published guidelines. There's still a bit of work to do on them. We're not all 100% happy with them, but we're on a journey. And we also are in the middle of just about to put a business case up to government to seek funding, which is a really important part, to support this transition. So how we support landowners to enable this land to be stabilised for the better of our community.
Amazing. Before we dive into the requests to government and the financing elements, let's go back a little bit to the start of what you said, and particularly around the preference for natives, and the project of Recloaking Papatūānuku. And I think Simon, we'll jump over to you for that. And can you explain to us a little bit about the project and a little bit more about why natives?
Absolutely. I'll give you some context first. So, Pure Advantage is an environmental NGO, and it's backed by leaders in business and academia. We've been around about probably almost 15 years, maybe even longer than that, in terms of the Green Growth Research Trust with a 100% plan that was born out of that in the out of the Helen Clark government. But our focus is to present sustainable pathways for New Zealand, with the impetus that if we invest in our strategic natural advantages, we will benefit more disproportionately than almost any other nation on the planet in the low carbon economy. One of those strategic advantages is our nature-based solutions, and we've been trying to highlight the rationale for that for better part of a decade pretty strongly. Our Forest Future was in an early paper that we did that was the blueprint for an initiative called Trees That Count. We parlayed that into a work program called Our Regenerative Future, which looked at, put the lens on regenerative agriculture through soil carbon acquisition and so on and so forth, and better practices in that way. We put together a program of work called Aotearoa, and had about 60 or 70 experts in that, a whole lot of podcasts and webisodes, and then we presented a conference for that at Te Papa in 2022. Now the success of that was like, wow, if we can raise the lid on the benefits, the myriad benefits of native forests, so it's not just carbon, but it's all these other benefits, so reducing soil erosion, for providing shade and shelter, enhancing water quality, and as well as the biodiversity values, that we should see what we can do in that way. So we came up with the idea of Recloaking Papatūānuku, which is an initiative to restore and enhance a massive number of hectares in native forests. So that was around December of 2022. You'll all remember in 23, in January, we had Cyclone Hale, we had the Auckland floods, and then we had Cyclone Gabriel. And then here in Tairāwhiti was driven out of the ministerial inquiry into land use, was born out of here. And so we accelerated our focus on what RP was, Recloaking Papatūānuku, I can just refer it to as RP. And we came up with a model for 2 million hectares, a little over 2 million hectares of land that was sort of geospatially recognised all around New Zealand in terms of the opportunities that we could see based on a couple of hundred data points. All of this work was done through McKinsey on a pro bono level for us. And we came up with this number of $12 billion to restore 2 million hectares of lands and native forests over 30 years. And I was like, holy crap, that's a lot of money. But that's about the price of a Trans-Tasman cable. It's about the price that the current government invested in our defence. So it was like, this is an enormously positive thing to be doing, right? How we're going to pay for that was to look at our climate obligations for our nationally determined contributions, which amount to about 84 million tonnes that needs to be removed to meet our emission reduction targets that we've committed to under the Paris Agreement. And instead of spending that money offshore, we were suggesting let's invest in that onshore. And it's not exactly money, it's like a commitment. And so, but of course the current government didn't do that. That's still an argument that obligation should be crystallised in the Crown books to account for this kind of investment. There's also a bit of a hedge in that, in the sense that to meet the current emission reduction targets by 2030, even 2035, trees or forests planted, regenerated, managed and enhanced now probably won't sequester the amount and enough carbon to meet those targets. But that's kind of okay, because we still have to do this later on. We still have to remove carbon from the atmosphere, and we have to protect the carbon that's in our biosphere now with the old growth forests. And we have proven that you can get some really good uptick quite quickly by predator removal. And so all of these benefits can create resilience for our landscapes, like what's Tairāwhiti has experienced, as well as the double whammy of a carbon and biodiversity solution to do our fair share for ourselves and the planet.
Amazing. I guess there's a big question in there, and back to that financing and the how and who will be making this happen. And I know, Renee, you've been involved in some projects around this space. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on how this might become a reality?
Yeah, okay. The projects we've been working on really is to pilot the infrastructure to carry resource directly to the front line of where this activity needs to happen. So, for example, on our whenua at Te Kotuku, which is our first pilot site, we're looking at what are the activities that are happening on the ground, what's the mahi, the work hours being put into these activities, and what outcomes are we seeing. And if we can show that to the market and to the spaces where the resource is going to come from, then we can build the infrastructure that enables that resource to go all the way to the front line of where the work's going to happen, because we know that recloaking is what is wanted. We know that, as Simon's talking about, there's resource there and there's kind of financial mechanisms, and there's going to have to be public-private partnership, and the pūtea for all of this is going to come from lots of places. And so it's really, really important to ensure that we've got the mechanisms to get that resource all the way to the front lines of the activities. So that's the who. Like, the who actually doing the work are those closest to the whenua, those that are making the decisions every day for what's happening out there, the crews that are already out there, like in our Paemanga Raukumara project, doing the work to be regenerating. And then the how is all of the different spaces that resource can come from being able to be piped to these projects, and kind of what we're saying. It's an opportunity as well, I think, in Tairāwhiti, because we are organising together, and we have a really strong regional story. We're starting to see massive collaboration across our industries. We've got a really strong case now to kind of put up our hands as a testing ground for some of these mechanisms. We've got the whenua that people are committing to regenerate. We have got some of the mechanisms in place, and yeah, it's almost like the perfect storm right now for us. Sorry about the pun and the kind of trauma that raises from our Cyclone Gabrielle experience. But I think, like, even a few years back, I think it was just post-COVID, we had Recloaking the Whenua straight out of this studio here. We had a whole day event where different experts came and shared, and people, practitioners from the ground came, kind of shared their experiences of what's going on out here in Tairāwhiti and what people are already doing to make this stuff happen. And it streamed around the nation, and we got quite a bit of hit. And then from there, or even before that, but you know, that kind of just shows the level of momentum, even back a few years. So yeah, we're at a pretty special point in time now, I think, to really kick off in this space. We are at an important turning point, I think. In fact, you mentioned the Recloaking the Whenua. I think that was the first time I worked with both yourself and Hamiora Gibson, Sam the Trap Man, Yes.
co-stars on the film Think Like a Forest. You guys must be really proud of that work as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the film while we're on that too?
Oh, yeah, sure. So with Recloaking Papatūānuku, we took it to, we launched it at COP in 2023, COP 28. And then through 24, we were exploring what our role could be to catalyse this initiative, since we're not a deployment implementation group. We're mainly an advocacy convening group. And we looked quite closely at measurement, reporting and verification, MRV, and different projects and how that could come about. But the biggest draw for us was that we could tell the story. And so that's what Think Like a Forest is. It brings Recloaking Papatūānuku to life. And we began by a sequence in North Canterbury. And once we got that in the can, we realised that we needed to frame it up around with the Tairāwhiti story. And so that's what we did in January of this year, 2025. And we met these amazing characters that we've got here in the studio, Sam and Renee and Meli Tamanui and Jordan Tibble and Graham Atkins and Malcolm Rutherford and Dame Ann Salmond, and of course led by, have I forgotten anyone? I usually do. Led by Sam the Trap Man, you know, and so we've got this beautiful vehicle which you know is painting that picture of these are the opportunities, these are the people doing the mahi, these are the challenges, and you know, let's inspire others and to do this work at scale.
Amazing. Look, there's one thing in both of these stories that resonates with me, and you just mentioned that those who will be required to do the mahi are those on the ground. You're mentioning names that I run into every day in my daily life, almost. Like I've worked with them, I see them around, And before we started this, you made a statement that at the moment in Tairāwhiti we have one voice, and that we are really pushing towards a desired outcome that we all share and believe in. Is that right? Like, is that where you feel we're going? Do you see the farmers adopting the same concept as the activists are pursuing, as the politicians are perceiving? Like, do we really have that cohesive voice yet?
So I feel personally in Tairāwhiti, what we have been through as a region really unites us around this topic, because we had the impacts of these weather events, of deforestation on the land, of land use choices in the past, and that flowed through our whole entire community. You could be a business owner and you were getting the effects of this. You didn't even need to be a landowner to feel the effects. You knew people that have lost their houses that maybe didn't have insurance, and we were cut off for how many days, basically on our own to deal with what was happening after the cyclone. And that in a way has put us in this, actually, along with the fact that we have the highest volunteer hours in the whole entire country, like our volunteerism in the region is huge. And so we care about our place. We're very, Tairāwhiti focused. And all of this stuff has meant that we're in this very unique position that we see the need that we need to change for the future of our region and the future of our children. And so what I have been seeing, and we work really closely with catchment groups and farmers and forestry companies in Tairāwhiti Environment Centre and business, is that everyone is really interested in this. There's a agreed kind of pathway and journey around where we need to go. There's like a few different opinions on, what that potentially could look like, but the outcome is the same, that we need to do something to strengthen our land, and that has flow-on effects for our people. So, we're just now in the middle of telling that story to politicians, trying to get that investment that we need to do it here at place. But one thing that I know from working in this region is that we are so efficient with the money that we have, that money that comes in, the work that's already happening on the ground, we can see it, the outcomes that we've had from these brilliant people out there doing predator control, out there doing planting. There's so many. I could sit here for like an hour and tell you stories of farmers and forestry companies and community groups and iwi hapu taiao groups that are doing this work and are using the little money they have so efficiently, and then getting amazing outcomes out of it. So I think so, yes, definitely. I don't know about what you think, Renee, and what you think, Simon, from coming in from outside of region. But
just cutting you off there, let's bring them in to tell their stories, because I think those are the stories that we'd love to hear and hear as well. Right, so let's get some of those forestry companies and those who are doing the amazing mahi to come and tell us about it. That'd be wonderful.
Great, we can make that work.
Okay, let's go next to Simon. What outside perspective do you have that we miss because we live in this space?
Well, I mean, when Sam was talking, I was like, well, it's not all rose-coloured lenses, it's really not. I mean, I think we've got vested interests and lobby groups that are not on the same page. And, I appreciate that the forestry industry is a $7 billion industry in New Zealand, and it's taken 100 years to get to 1.7 million hectares of well-managed exotic, mostly pine plantations. But when I see all those pile of logs over there in the port, it's like, God, there's not much value add to this, is it, really, at the end of the day? But there's a lot of science and rigour that goes along with that, so that's not our argument. The New Zealand Forest Owners Association are part of this kaupapa. They are deeply concerned with their forest estates and the perimeters with which they operate estates to manage in native forests. The bugbear that we have is with the carbon farming, and that's where they are incentivised we believe, completely inappropriately. We think it's moral corruption, and that is just that's like when New Zealand introduced stoats to get rid of rabbits, and stoats decided that native birds and eggs were far easier to eat and catch. That we think that the planting of pine trees to fix our short-term carbon sequestration needs is a mirror of that kind of problem, because we'll be dealing with the tail end of that for the long term. And the permanent forest category under the emissions trading scheme allows landowners to plant any kind of tree they want and take carbon credits for up to 50 years. And after that, they can just wash their hands of it and walk away. And who is left with that mess? It's going to be, our children and grandchildren, a mokopuna. And so it's the balance that we see is still unbalanced. There are green shoots, and I think when you think like a forest playing to an audience, and the response that I've seen from audiences is that everyone gets this, and the question is like, why are we not doing it? And there are some policy levers that need to change, and there's some financial capital shifts that need to happen. So instead of short-term investment, we want longer-term investment cycles, and that's quite hard for corporates to look at. Who are the primary sort of private capital investors? Public capital. We've been strapped for cash. Apparently post-COVID overspending. So there's a lot of other needs in our infrastructure. So it's a matter of blending, or showing the wider benefits of our natural systems and how that impacts and allows the people to thrive, as well as investing in healthcare and education and electrification of transport and homes and industry and all of these other really obvious reasons that we can do to create a better, more healthier and wealthier nation that meets our climate and biodiversity goals.
I mean, a lot of those problems you're mentioning in there at the political level are very real and very disputed by those politicians in power at the moment, right? You're talking about reducing our reliance on oil and gas. They're looking at opening up exploration. We're still fighting the concept that GDP matters, that actually just creating more economic turnover matters, and that's just churn. As far as anyone who hates the measure of GDP knows that it's meaningless to the well-being of a nation. But I've never seen one of those business cases that give us all of the well-being indicators and put a value against it. And like, I've seen them all the time, but I've never seen one of them proved out. When do we get to prove one of those scenarios and point to it and say, look, this did have the multi-billion-dollar return for our community that we thought it could? Or are we simply not tackling the challenges head on and doing something big enough to prove those outcomes? Are we always just fiddling at the edges? I don't know. What do you think, Renee?
Well, I think the opportunity is to do just that, to look holistically at these outcomes. Like, some of the failings of the emissions trading scheme that we've been talking about are that it focuses on just one particular piece of the puzzle. Internationally, you see markets fall over where, hey, it looks good on paper for a forest to exist, but you go down at a community level and the community's being displaced or wiped out. And so I think our opportunity is to look at all of those measures, but like you said, we need to be able to kind of quantify them and bring them in to be seen by some of those market spaces, so that they can do the work they need to do to attract the resource. So it's not just the time spent doing the work, the carbon outcomes, the biodiversity outcomes, freshwater outcomes, but it's the impact on communities, it's the the livelihoods that are created from getting resource into our spaces like that. And I think this idea of speaking kind of with one voice, it's not that we as a whole region all are going to be thinking the same. That's definitely never going to happen. But like when you're in a forest, each of the trees and the flora, fauna in that ecosystem all have a different kind of job to do. And so it's actually about speaking with a level of kind of consistency on certain things that we can agree on, being able to present that up as a unified kind of stance. And that can be done whilst at the same time ensuring that each person, place, community has their own kind of mana motuhake around what they see as the right path forward. But I think we're building a muscle here in Tairāwhiti through our transition advisory group on land use, through our outreach to optimism inquiry, through our things like citizens assembly. We're kind of building a muscle here to say we all come from different perspectives, but we can agree on this layer here, and here's our pathway forward together. Yeah.
And I think what we've heard as well a lot is that we want it to be Tairāwhiti led. We don't want people to come in from the outside and dictate to the community what needs to happen. And the Transition Advisory Group, the Citizens Assembly, all of these bodies where you're bringing together people from different perspectives across Tairāwhiti to find a way forward is doing just that. It's Tairāwhiti led, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of noise around the outside with whether that's like political drivers or big company interests or whatever, but actually getting to a point where you can get into a room and have these conversations and, you know, agree to high level decisions on where we want to go as a region and what we want to do is so powerful. It's just, mana enhancing for people in the room. It means that we are sharing perspectives that we just need when we're dealing with these wicked problems. You know, you can't do it alone in isolation.
Yeah, and it's a small place. Like, if you have a bit of a raru in the room, you're going to bump into them in the dairy or whatever, you know, like, that's the beauty of it as well. You're constantly crashing into each other. Yeah.
Wonderful. Look, I'm just going to go around the room and see if there's any final statements. We've gone down the concept of setting the scene, but is there anything that we can do right now that will make a difference in terms of our personal life to push things forward, or is it really in the policyholders' hands at the moment? I'll start with you, Renee.
I think one thing that really hits when you watch the Think Like a Forest film is the beautiful landscapes and images of nature in that film. And so I'd say one key thing for all of us to do is just spend more time, and I'm speaking to myself as much as anyone, but spend more time in nature, because in that way we're able to communicate not just with each other but with the wider part of nature that makes us all up. So yeah, spend more time in nature.
Sam?
That's beautiful. Yeah, we all definitely need to do that. I think from a region perspective, one thing that will make a massive difference in terms of being able to regenerate Tairāwhiti at scale is managing our pests. So I would say one thing that we could do now that's within our control is have traps on your property, even if you're in an urban environment. There's stats that, 1 in every 5 households has a backyard trap. You can bring native bird life back into the region. Birds are obviously amazing dispersers of our native seeds. So when we have those beautiful manu around us, we get forests. So that would be my number one thing that we could all do tomorrow, including coming into Tairāwhiti Environment Centre and getting a free trap. So come and visit us to get yours.
Awesome. And Simon?
Oh, kia ora. What is it that Millie says when you come into the forest at Para, we leave them there.
Kia tau te wairua.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful phrase. Can you say that again?
Kia tau te wairua? I don't know if I'm quoting her directly, but
when you see the film, it's beautiful. Look, this is not in the hands of the policymakers. They are failing. And this requires the curiosity of this audience who's listening to this podcast to engage and activate. And we know that 100% of everything we use and derive is from nature. The copper wires in these microphones, the silica in the glass on the screen, the veneers, the brick, everything.
The oxygen.
Everything is derived from nature. So when we've got the rise of this other species, which is AI, and how young people are presented, with these pathways, that at the end of the day, nature is the one that will survive and thrive if we let it and if we work more closely with it. And that's what we need to have audiences and young people and old people everywhere reconnect with and see all of those benefits that give us so much. And that's the shift that I hope that we can do with our work and our film and the sequels that we're going to produce from it.
Amazing. So because I have no wisdom of my own, I'll go with what you've said, and I loved the phrase you said, which is dealing with the wicked problem.
Yeah.
And to do so, we need to recognise that everything is from nature, that nature provides everything we need, that to reconnect with nature, we can recognise the problem, and then we can make individual action, even in our own homes, that will contribute to this challenge and to defeating this wicked problem. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a wonderful podcast, and I look forward to having you all again.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thank you.
Yeah.